Hello, everybody. How are you all doing today? Welcome back to another week with me, Michelle Green at Kingdom Builders Credit Repair. We are so excited to have you watching today. We want to make sure that you are subscribed to the Kingdom Builders Credit Repair YouTube channel and also the KB Michelle Green. We are everywhere. Also, we are powered by the CTR Media Network. So make sure that you are connected with us, that you like, you comment, and that you share. If you have any concerns or questions that come up while we are discussing our credit today and finances, then definitely make sure that you leave us a note below. Okay? All right. So welcome, tell a friend, make sure that you share and like. We are so excited to get into today's topic. So I am going to just jump right in. First off, we are talking about the mindset of a person who has high credit scores. What is their mindset? How do they think? What is different from the things that you think about every day versus someone who is used to carrying a 750 credit score or higher? Well, the first thing that I want to discuss is the mindset of having a high credit score is not a mindset of an emergency. So most of the people, when we look at our clients and their credit and their situations, we receive this mindset of everything has to be on a time ticker. It's almost like, let me get rich quick by getting my credit handled quickly so that I can jump into this house, buy this car, be able to move, be able to finance whatever it is that they're trying to finance. And it's a state of an emergency mindset. Well, the state of an emergency mindset is not the mindset of someone who has a high credit score. Let me explain what I'm talking about. The mindset of someone who has a high credit score is a wealth mindset. It's a mindset of positioning themselves for credit. Now, if we look at the opposite, we all know too well, everything that we do tends to be a sense of urgency. But when we think about someone with a higher credit score, they are very relaxed, they are calm, they are settled, and they understand the purpose of having credit is so that they can have the proper tools to be able to do what it is that they want. So when we think about someone who has a high credit score, we got to think about from the perspective that I don't necessarily need the credit, but I'm having the credit. I'm going to obtain certain kind of credit for the purpose of being able to do what it is that I want to do later. So let's look at an example. If we have a client that has a high credit score versus a low credit score, their conversation is usually around, let me add certain things to my credit, such as a loan of some type, or maybe a card of some type, so that I be able to later on position myself for wealth. So in other words, I want to get my credit score up, but is it really about getting the credit score up as much as it is about having the right type of credit on the credit report to show the trustworthiness? Because we all know that credit is about trustworthiness. And I know that every time we come on, we talk about what is credit. Credit is the ability for you to be able to gain something in exchange for money that you need or that you want at a later time. So when we look at credit, we don't have the money ourselves right now for it. So we're going to accrue that money at a later time, which means that we're going to pay it off over a period of time. So that leads me to another fact that we have about our credit. We don't really look at the credit long term when we are thinking from the opposite perspective of having a high credit score. We look at credit as something that we want to establish really quickly. So we want to go ahead and get, most of the time, we want to establish quick fixes. We want to establish credit that is short term. In other words, we want to hurry up and get something that's going to bring the score up quickly, which is what we call alternative credit in the credit industry. Well, alternative credit in the credit industry is not credit that we really want to establish first or at all. Because when we look at the lenders, when they are viewing your credit files, they don't want to see that you are taking a shortcut route to establish credit for a 6 month to a year time period of having the full life cycle of that credit be established. They want to see that you're going to establish a credit line that's going to last at least for 5, maybe I would say between 3 to 5 years is the average that they really want to see. So we don't want to just go into the equation of thinking, okay, well, I got this credit and I'm going to establish it, but I'm going to have this whole account paid off within 3 to 6 months. That's not the solution for long-term creditors. For long-term creditors, you have to make sure that you have your credit accounts over a period of 2 years minimum. That's why the history of credit, there is a portion of the pie that is the equation for your credit score. So when we look at the credit score equation, part of it says that your credit history is going to make up about 20% of your credit score. Now that we know that, we got to understand that if we don't have long-term accounts and we're thinking about, I'm just going to go in, I'm going to get this credit, it's going to be for the emergency purpose because I know that I need to get my credit fixed. And while I'm getting my credit fixed, I'm going to go ahead and establish an account that's only going to be a temporary fix. Then that is usually where we drop the ball with having those low credit scores. Because again, the lenders, the creditors are looking for people who are long-term clients, who are long-term. They're going to stay with them for at least a minimum of 3 years. And for the credit purposes, a minimum of 24 months. Okay, so that's something that we really got to think about. You know, when we look at emergency purposes, I hear all the time, well, let me just go and establish a couple of credit cards because I want to get my credit score up. And that is the solution that everybody has heard of before. However, having just credit cards is not the solution either. When we look at our credit and we're trying to build our credit score up, first we got to think long term. It's not an emergency. It's not something that we should be in a state of mind where we are forced to establish credit, okay? We should not be forced to establish credit lines at the time that we are looking at the position of our credit for going to a 750 to a 850 credit score. And 850 is the highest score you can have, by the way. So we want to get out of the mindset that we want to do it real quick. We want to have the solution of establishing our credit quickly, and we want to do it for the purpose of having an emergency solved. Okay, let me also pinpoint this issue that we have around the quick fixes. We also don't want to establish credit cards for the purpose of an emergency. A purpose of an emergency is something that we as people should understand coming right out of high school. And I know that nobody really teaches this but KBCR. Okay. Hey, make sure that you give us our props out there. Okay. But anyway, the point is that when you look at credit cards, right? And we look at the credit card and establishing the credit card for the sake of an emergency so that we can either boost our credit real quick, or we have a credit card and we use it for the purpose of an emergency. Now, that's a whole different situation, but that situation is also incorrect in the way that we look at positioning our credit. So when we think about our credit, we want to understand that a credit card is not there for the purpose of us having an emergency be covered. What we have to understand is that fresh out of high school and even prior to high school. We should be teaching our children, and we ourselves should have a mindset of understanding that there are going to be emergencies that arise in our life. That is not something that any person is exempt from it happening to them. So we got to take on a different mindset that people who have high credit scores are already preparing for an emergency to happen. And what they do in preparation for an emergency to happen is to make preparations long before the emergency even exists. So, how do they do that? They do that by making sure that they have and maintain high credit scores. So they don't go and make purchases just because. They go and make purchases to build their credit score up and to keep it maintained high. They understand that they have to take care of their responsibilities. Now, this leads me to another point of the mindset of someone who has a high credit score. See, the mindset of a person who has a high credit score is that it's their responsibility to maintain a high score. It's not the system's fault. You know, I hear too many times, and I do mean way too many times, that it's mama's fault, it's daddy's fault, it's my family's fault, it's the credit bureau's fault, it's the creditor's fault, it's everybody's fault but mine. Just ponder on that whole sentence right there. Okay, let's just think about that for a second. We have to be responsible for our own credit. It is our responsibility for the things that we allow to be placed on our credit. And it's our responsibility to make sure that if something is incorrect or inaccurate on our credit, that we are taking the initiative to make the change. And not only are we taking the initiative, if you come into Kingdom Builders Credit Repair and you work with KBCR on your credit, it's still your responsibility to follow through with the action steps that we give you. It's not that you come into a credit repair organization and think that they are going to solve everything under the sun pertaining to your credit and finances without you having to lift a finger. Now, we do make it very convenient for our clients, and we try to make it so that you don't have to worry that much about the whole process of the disputes. You don't have to worry about whether or not you're adding the right kind of credit. You don't have to even worry about your financial portfolio and if we are going to put together a budget that is going to allow you to achieve your dreams and goals. Okay? But that's not something that you get everywhere. Okay? That's what makes KBCR different from other companies. But the thing about it is that we have to understand that we are the ones responsible. Let me give you an example on that. Back in the day, before my credit even got started, my mom ran up some credit card debt. She ran up some utilities, such as some cable companies. There were some light bill companies. There were some people with water bill, and different types of sewage accounts, rental properties, and credit cards that were on my credit as a child. So by the time that I turned 18 and I decided that, okay, well, let me go and see about buying a house because now I have point two children or 2.0 children rather. And I wanted to make sure that I secured my kids with a place to live instead of hopping from place to place. Okay. So one of the things that I realized when I got ready to purchase a home was that, wait a minute, okay, what's going on with my credit? Because the guy told me when I went to go to the mortgage lender to get the financing done, he said, your credit is horrible. And I was like, how can my credit be horrible if I haven't even had any credit? I didn't even know what credit was. So how do I start out having bad credit if I don't even have any credit at all? And that's where many of us begin this process. Maybe we have had identity theft. Maybe we've had someone that had added credit to our profiles before we were even an adult. Maybe we had our identity stolen or whatever the scenario is, but we cannot walk around blaming the other person or the people or the organizations for our responsibility to take care of our credit. So, one of the mindsets of the people who have and maintain 750 credit scores and higher is that they take on their own responsibility of making sure that if there's anything on their files that's not right, they are going to make sure that it is corrected. Sometimes they themselves will go ahead and they will make sure that they call the credit bureaus. I call the credit bureaus about my own credit. I don't sit around, and people with high credit scores do not sit around and wait for something to fall out of the sky, some miracle that's going to happen to make the changes for their credit and finances. So, what am I saying? I'm saying that we got to learn how to take accountability for the things that happened to us and the things that we did ourselves. That is how we make changes with our credit. So we got to understand that no matter if we were rejected or whatever the scenario was, if we were rejected, denied, if something happened where somebody stole our identity or something happened where a family member not having the proper credit education on how to take care of their credit decided to put your information on under their credit process so that they can get the things that they wanted to receive because they didn't have good credit, then guess what? It's still your responsibility to make the change. So, how can we really begin to shift and change this whole mindset? We got to understand that people with high credit scores do not use credit as a crutch. Okay? We don't use credit as, okay, well, I'm going to just build up a whole bunch of credit that I don't have any intention on paying back. I'm just going to use all of this credit, as a crutch to just say that I'm going to rack up a whole bunch of debt and I don't know how in the world I'm going to pay this money back. So that is what people think that have the wrong mindset and the reason why they stay covered and drowning in debt. Now, the other part of that is the mindset of not understanding that you got to have a plan to get out of debt. So that leads me to my second point. When we think about the people who have the mindset of the lower credit scores, we're looking at the mindset of, okay, well, how am I ever going to get out of this? I'm never going to be able to get out of debt. So we think about this from the angle of, okay, I'm helpless. Okay, I don't have the ability myself to be able to earn enough money over time to be able to pay off any of the things that I have put my name to, or that other people have forced me to kind of put my name to. Okay, so we don't want to have that mindset. People with high credit scores understand that there is always hope. And that's what I want you to understand and know about KBCR, about Kingdom Builders Credit Repair. You do have the opportunity to change your credit and financial situation. It is not that you are hopeless and that you will never be able to get out of debt. I don't care if you're in $1 million worth of debt. I have seen the files that show $500,000, $1 million, and more. And I have seen these individuals do a 360 and now maintain a high credit score. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because truly, we have to be the kind of person that understands that there is always hope with credit. You should not be just seeking an easy route out with credit. Don't go and file bankruptcy. Understand that if you put together a plan, how much debt do you have altogether? Okay, let's look at that first. Let's look at the kind of debt that you have. Do you have a car note that you're trying to pay off? Do you have a mortgage you're trying to pay off? Is it personal loan debt? Is it department store debt? Is it credit card debt? And let's look at what we can do to put together a plan over time that will allow you to take care of your main responsibilities, which are always going to be your utilities. And then let's put together a plan that is going to allow you to pay your debt down over a period of time. Do you realize that over time, you actually have the ability to earn over millions of dollars? Do you realize that if you work for 40 years and if you average out at even 30 to $40,000 a year, which is on the low end, even if you never ever make a six-figure income, you still have made over a period of 40 years of earning an income over $1 million. So that's something to think about. If you earn over a period of time, 40 years, 30 years, some of us work 60 years and 70 years of our life. Okay? And we're always doing stuff to earn an income one way or another, whether it's on the job or in a business. And we don't realize that the amount of money that we earn, what you're telling me is that you don't have the ability to take a portion of that money to pay back the people that allowed you to receive the credit in the first place? Are you saying that it's fair that because of the way that you were treated in the situation with the credit, that is just something that you just want to ignore? No, we got to take on the mindset of the people who have the 750 credit scores and higher. And that's what I'm saying about even myself. I think about the fact that, okay, I owe a certain amount of money. How long will it take me to pay off a $300,000 mortgage? How long will it take me to pay off a $50,000 vehicle note? How long would it take me to pay off 30, let's say not 30, but maybe $3,000 to $5,000 of department store or credit card debt? How long would it take you to do the same thing? Based on how much you make and based on the time period that you have to earn an income, the lifetime of your income will definitely suffice for the debt that you owe. But the problem is that you have never put together a plan. And as long as you continue to ignore putting together a plan to solve the problem of the debt that you have, then there is not going to be a solution for you maintaining the high credit scores. Okay, so see, that's something that we really got to just dive into. We got to understand that we got to plan to pay off the debt. Now, one of the other things that the people who have high credit scores and myself think about is that we plan a purchase. We don't just decide that we're going to go and buy something because it's something that we need right now in the moment. So that goes right back to not thinking from an emergency mindset and freaking out at the last hour, the last minute of the equation to say that I cannot do any better. I got to do this right now. So we got to understand that we got to plan the purchase. We have to plan what it is that we're going to need. We got to look around and begin to be conscious about the things that we already have in possession right now. Do you have a vehicle that you know has been breaking down? Do you have a house or an apartment or something that you know you're getting ready to renew a lease and you know that you have been late a few times? Do you want to be in a better standing than you were previously with the previous renter? Do you want to be in a better position with the landlord than what you have been in the past year, 2 years that you've been at the place where you live? And let's look at, when we are renting property, we always want to tell the landlord about all of the upkeep of our apartment, our house, our townhouse, a condo, or whatever it is that we're living in. But on the flip side of that, when we look at our credit, we got to be able to look around and see how can we keep the upkeep of the things that we actually have in possession right now. So if you own a home or if you're considering buying a house, what is the maintenance upkeep of the home? What is the maintenance upkeep of a washer and a dryer? What is the maintenance upkeep of the vehicle? These are the ways that we plan purchases when you have a high credit score. We don't wait till the last minute. We do it ahead of time, okay? How many years have you had the vehicle? We need to know that after a period of time of having a vehicle, the vehicle is going to either need to be maintained, and if it has so many miles on it, we're going to have to change the tires. We're going to have to possibly continue to make sure we got the oil change. We got to make sure that we got the windshield wipers done. We got to make sure that the engine is right, and if it is so old, we got to understand that we're possibly going to have to take on a new car note. And if that is the equation that is at hand, if we plan the purchase ahead of time, it will allow us to be able to be ahead of our credit so that we're not just going into buying something and putting it on our credit at a high interest rate, as well as something that we really don't want to pay for. So we got to think about that vehicle. We got to think about our homes. Do you have a house where maybe the doorway is breaking down? Do you have the window sills that are kind of getting old and crumbling? Do you have a structure where it's upholding the front porch or the back porch, a deck or something that is kind of rotting out because it's been there for so long? We got to think about the things inside of the house. Is there furniture that needs to be replaced? Do you need to remodel the kitchen or the bathroom? These are things that we don't consider. And the mindset of a person who has a 750 to 850 credit score, always take those things into consideration. Why? Because it's not something that will be eliminated. You never want to get to a point where it's an emergency and you don't have the credit and you don't have the money to do what you need to do. So, what am I saying? I'm saying to solve the problem with credit, change the mindset that you have about the emergency, change the mindset of what you have about, going and making purchases and not giving yourself enough time to really make a wise choice about what you need to purchase. Change your mindset around what it is that you are buying and whether or not you are preparing for an emergency or preparing down the road, not just buying something and assuming that there's not going to be an emergency, but that you are thinking about what could happen and you're considering all of the equation of what you need to do to secure the income that it's going to take to pay off the debt over a period of time. So this is the kind of mindset that someone with a 750 to 850 credit score has, because we don't do the emotional spending. We don't do the emotional purchases. We don't look at it as a force or to be angry and upset around the fact that the emergency is going to happen, because it's going to happen to all of us. But no matter the situation, we got to understand that it's our responsibility at the end of the day to take on the things that we have on our credit so that we can make better choices around our credit, our finances, and our whole financial portfolio. Stop thinking that it's the money. Stop thinking that you don't have enough and start realizing that you do have what you have. And you do have the ability to decide in your mind to make a different decision than what you ever made before. Possibly anybody in your whole entire family has ever made before, to choose a different way of thinking so that you can have a different outcome for your particular future. Thank you, and I hope that this has helped you today. Make sure that you subscribe, that you comment below. If you have a question, reach out to us at www.kingdombuilderscreditrepair.com. because we really truly want to make sure that your credit and finances are completely intact and that you take this journey with us of maintaining a 750 credit score or higher. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you have enjoyed.